everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ripple Effect Podcast. My name is Daniel. I'm so glad that you've joined us here today, whether you're listening to this on the go or you're watching us here. We're so happy that you have joined us. As always, this podcast gives you a behind-the-scenes look of things that are going on here at the church, gives us a chance to share some things coming up with you, and also an opportunity to highlight someone that we feel like you should know about. Today we have in the studio on my far left Mr. Brian Sevitz. He's here and rocking it. And Mr. Gerald Feller is here as well. And we're so glad that you're here with us. Although Jerry is not your name, is it?
No, it's Gerald.
Gerald. And I have
That's fine, but I go by Jerry.
I was going to say, I've always called you Jerry.
That's fine. That's what everybody calls me.
Then I was emailing you. I'm like, where's Jerry? I'm like, I don't see Jerry here. Well, we're going to get to him here in a little bit. We're so glad he's joined us today. Before we get into anything, we wanted to just give you a little recap of what happened on Sunday and to highlight a few things for you. We've been in our Habits of the Church series, and we talked about 2 weeks ago about the habit of surrendered living. This past week we talked about relationships, and I wanted to, and I thought about it too late, at the start of my sermon to put on a Dr. Phil mustache and then start talking about relationships like Dr. Phil. I remember going to my Nana's house in the afternoon, and she would have Dr. Phil on, or she'd have some of these relationship shows on, the experts that are on. But we talked about having God-honoring relationships first with other believers and then with those who are outside of Christ. And I wanted to read for you, we were in 1 Thessalonians 5, but I wanted to read a part of it that I didn't read, and you guys can tell me if I should have included it. So at the very end of chapter 5, 1 Thessalonians 5, Paul writes, Now may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely. May your whole spirit and soul and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. He who calls you is faithful, he will surely do it. I read that part. Here's what I left out. Brothers, pray for us and greet all of the brothers with a holy kiss. And I thought about in relationships, talking about greeting each other with a holy kiss. People don't want to bring back the foot washing, but maybe the holy kiss should come back. I don't know.
Well, you never know.
I don't. But if you missed that sermon, you can go online and listen to it. We were talking about how do we have God-honoring relationships with one another, and the main idea was don't stop fighting for healthy relationships. So I guess I can put it to you guys just to know your thoughts about, are there times where it's like these relationships that I'm investing in, sometimes it's too much. Have you ever been tempted to just be like, I'm done trying in this relationship?
It definitely feels like sometimes overwhelming to, or just like a lot of work, even as a minister. And that sounds bad to say it, but sometimes I just get peopled out and just want to veg. And I guess realizing the responsibility we have and keeping that on the front of our mind, that God does give us these interactions, not just for acquaintances and not just for like when we need something, but to invest in, even when we feel like we don't have time and stuff.
Yeah. Now, Jerry, I know Brian he's an odd duck because he's an introvert, but he also likes to be around people. What about you? Are you an extroverted person?
I think so. Yeah, most of my career was in politics, and you have to be a little bit extroverted in order to do that. Mm-hmm. I ran an association, membership organization, and you have to be a people person to do that. It's difficult to keep all of those folks happy.
Yeah.
But I think it was a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Well, if you missed any of that sermon, you go online at tlcc.church or to Facebook or YouTube, and you can catch up on what you missed out on. And I'd encourage you to read, even if you read the end of chapter 5 of 1 Thessalonians, it gives some great instructions on how we can encourage each other and have healthy relationships. Let's move on to the top 3, TLCC top 3 that you need to know heading into this week. Things that we feel are important for you to have a heads up about. Brian?
Yeah, so assuming we get this posted today, which is Tuesday, there are some groups, they're calling them life season support groups, that'll be starting tonight and then one of them next week. So our grief share, divorce care, and Al-Anon groups all start back up this evening for the spring. And basically, they're not all, I don't have all the details about all these groups here, and I don't even think we want to spend time to talk through each one of them, but they either start at 6 or 6:30. You can go on the church's website, tlcc.church, and or know that we need to go to the app for this. I'm sorry, tlcc.churchcenter.com. And you probably can link to it from our website anyway. But our app, if you have the Church Center app, they're on there under groups, or tlcc.churchcenter.com gives you more details about all of them. But the other one, Divorce Care for Kids, is starting up the following Tuesday on the 28th.
Yeah, so maybe some of you don't know that we have some of those groups. If you have those situations in your life, or you're working through grief or divorce, or even separation that's affected your kids, and even Al-Anon as someone who is supporting and helping someone that's dealing with addiction, those are great support groups. And so maybe you're dealing with that, or maybe you know someone in your life that is going through those circumstances. A lot of times, members that aren't even a part of this congregation, or people who aren't even a part of this congregation, go to those groups, and they're open for everybody in need. So if you have more questions about that, just shoot us a message or comment on this, and we'd love to help you get more info.
Yep. So next Sunday, or this coming Sunday, the 26th, is that right? I think January 26th, we're having our ordination. So we have one new elder, one new deacon to bring on board. So we're excited about that. That'll happen both hours. So we just kind of wanted you to try to be here if you can. I mean, it's a special Sunday as we add new leaders. And then a couple weeks after that is something we're leading up to. That Super Bowl Sunday. We're calling it Jersey Sunday. Daniel talked about it a little bit Sunday. Wear whatever your favorite. I mean, it might be Moberly Spartans. I don't know. But if you want to wear your Chiefs jersey, great. If you have another jersey you want to throw on, I'm sadly going to miss that. We're going to be on the mission trip. But maybe we'll wear our jerseys down there. I don't know.
Just honor. It's kind of becoming a tradition for you to watch the Super Bowl.
This will be the second one I've watched in Mexico, and the first of the three-peat, was
so maybe we need to keep sending you there so that they keep winning.
Oh, well, I wasn't there last year.
Oh, okay.
But I think I don't really remember if they were there, the group that went on the trip last year. Yeah. But it's always either like the final round or the Super Bowl, when it's during that trip. So it's kind of cool. Sitting in a pizza place down in Mexico, and they have it on. I mean, we don't have to ask for it to be on. They have the Super Bowl on. So
that's great. All right, Jerry. What we do usually to new guests is ask them to, in 60 seconds or less, just tell us who you are. So imagine you're meeting someone for the first time, and they say, "Who is Jerry?" What would you answer? Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm gonna start the timer. Go.
My name's Gerald Feller, and I grew up on a farm in Colorado. After leaving the farm, I went to work for a utility company, Homeland Power Company, and sometime after that, I had been dating a girl who was my neighbor on the farm, and we decided eventually to get married.
Hey.
So in May of 1963, we got married, and we're still together some 60 years later.
Wow.
The marriage has blessed us with a great family. We have three grown children, all three of whom are married and are now in at least a 30-year marriage each. They have blessed us with 6 grandchildren, and we now have 5 great-grandchildren. But at any rate, who I am is in my family. I am a husband of 60 years. I am a dad to 3 wonderful grown children, and my grandchildren call me Pop, so I am Pop.
You're Pop.
And my great-grandchildren call me Pop, so that's me. I'm Pop.
There you go. I love it. That's perfect. Well, you and I've had interactions. You've been coming to Timberlake now It's been
a year.
I was gonna say a little over a year, but it's
Yeah.
getting close to that year
Mhm.
mark. And you've had a long marriage. You've had like you've mentioned close connections with your family, but you've also had a lot of unique challenges. And I was curious, just from your perspective, what kind of unique challenges in your life have you faced, and share a little bit about maybe how you've overcome them or what you've learned through them.
You know, I thought a lot about that question, and needless to say, over 80-year period, I've had my share of challenges. And I really was at a quandary as to which ones to talk about, but I think probably the most important challenge that I've faced is recently, I say recently, within the last 4 or 5 years, my wife was diagnosed with dementia. That has been undoubtedly the greatest challenge of my life. Not knowing what to expect, not knowing too much about dementia, and had a real tough time finding information either on the web or from doctors or whomever about what to expect. It has been a challenge. It has been a challenge that has changed, sometimes daily, sometimes week to week, but has definitely over the last 5 or 6 years become an almost unbearable challenge. I was able to take care of my wife at home, and found that at one point it was more than I could do, so I had to take her to a care facility.
So take me back to when you first got that diagnosis. I imagine you already suspected, based on what she was, either behavior or things you've noticed, but what did you think then? I mean, did you still have that kind of blind optimism? Were you just scared? Like, take us back to that moment when you received that diagnosis.
It was a shock, of course. Had really no idea what to expect. I think that my first reaction was, is this real? You know, is this really happening? And then it was at a point as, why us? You know, she is a beautiful young lady now.
Young lady.
Young lady. Yeah, she's a young 70-something. But it was just, it was very, very difficult to try to learn about it, to try to understand what was going on, to try to come to grips with it was really happening, you know. One of the first indications was we was living down at Osage Beach, and she had gone to the doctor and got lost on the way home. She then gave up her driver's license and said, you know, something's wrong. I don't want to drive anymore. I'm scared, afraid. And that was one of the reasons why we sold our home at Osage Beach and moved back to Moberly, because we do have family here. And I knew that we were going to need some help.
So in that kind of transition phase where this is gonna happen, to now it's really happening, and I'm losing my wife right in front of me. At some point you reached out for help, and you came actually to Grief Share.
I did.
What made you do that? Because your wife is still alive, but you have experienced a kind of loss.
Well, you know, with dementia or many other kinds of diseases, you lose your friend, your spouse, your whomever, almost daily. It's in increments. It's not something, you know, when somebody dies in a car accident or whatever it happens, it's instantaneous. Why that happens and it's over with. But this has been going on for 5 or 6 years. You know, it just. I don't know how to describe what it's like really, but you know, the reason I went to Grief Share though was because I was grieving. I was grieving the loss. She was to a point where we were having some difficult times because she was forgetting. She didn't know where she was at times and that sort of thing. So I did know that I was losing her, and there's a grief component to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we know, and Brian and I have talked a lot about how in challenges and loss and grief like that, when you go through them yourself, it's almost unbearable. But from the outside perspective, as we counsel people, we know that it can be a time of great learning and growth personally, but you don't want to hear that in the moment.
Right.
But you show up to Grief Share, you kind of go through this process. I asked you ahead of time to think about what kind of lessons or how's your relationship with God changed through these last couple of years?
Well, for the first time in 79 years, I live alone. Gives me lots of time to fill. And I've spent that time studying the Bible, praying a lot. It has given me a whole new perspective on what my Christian life ought to be. I've learned a lot. I started coming here to church, which has been a blessing for me. So I think I've developed a lot closer relationship with God. So does that answer your question?
We're just talking.
Yeah, I mean.
Nobody wants to. I think when you go through grief or you go through tough seasons, no one wants to think about the lessons learned, but they're there, and that's hard. But it's also helpful to know that God's still teaching you even through them.
Yeah. Yeah, He's still in charge. And I do know one thing that has come to me recently, which is a tremendous help. I do know that one day the Lord's going to take her home. And she's going to be there in heaven waiting for her family to come see her, come be with her. And that's, we can all look forward to that. She's going to be there. She's going to be waiting for us.
Fully restored.
Fully restored. And it's going to be forever. And that's what I tell her when I go to see her sometimes. She wants me to stay, or she wants to come home with me. And I said, one day we're going to be together forever. So, but I think working through some of these challenges, you've got to have a solution. A challenge can always bring you opportunities. And I think this challenge has brought me an opportunity to become closer to the Lord. I really do. And I guess in some ways it's a blessing in disguise.
Most burdens are usually some form of blessing.
Yeah.
Even though they're heavy.
Oh yeah, yeah. But
so this wasn't in the script, but I'm just curious. And Brian, maybe you can jump in on this too. Like, there had to have been a moment where you were angry with God.
Oh yes.
I mean, I was thinking about when's the last time I've been really angry with God, and I'm sure through this, like, how did you deal with that? Are you still dealing with that?
I dealt with it for a while. Why are you letting this happen? What's the reason? There's got to be a reason for this. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I guess it's not supposed to make sense to me. It's just, but it has. I don't know. But the anger, it's gone. I'm not angry anymore with it. I'm sad, upset, disappointed. We spent 60 years together, and I thought, well, maybe we'd have another
Another decade in you?
decade or so. My maternal grandparents, I'd say we went to their 75th wedding anniversary some years ago.
Wow.
And they lived into their 90s, nearly 100 years old.
Wow.
And that was amazing. I mean, it gave us a goal.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yes. What's the next goal? When you hit 60, I guess 75.
75 is the next goal, you know. But I think the relationship, the 60 years, you know, it's even people say, well, that's a long time, but it is. But yet it seems like it's been almost like yesterday. You know? But we were determined. We were married fairly young.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 19.
Wow.
But I had a good job. I was with a power company, and I was on my way to become a journeyman. I was in an apprenticeship.
Brian, how old were you when you got married?
What was it? 20. I have to do the math. Isn't that hard?
Yeah.
I was married.
I thought I knew, but then I don't think.
Well, I
knew.
was married in 08, and I was born in 84. So was that 24?
Wow.
That
He's grown by it.
Yeah, by 24, I had 3 children, you know.
That's good.
But,
it's been inspiring. I think the first time I met you, or at least the first time I remember meeting you, I didn't know the conversation I was getting into. I met you and I asked how you were doing, and I think you had been told to not come visit your wife because it was agitating her, and I mean it ended up being a long conversation because you were struggling. I don't remember when exactly that was, but
I spent 6 months not being able to go see her.
yeah,
And that was really tough, you know.
Yeah.
And the visits aren't easy,
Well, yeah.
but it's not nearly as tough as not being able to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and, you just never know what she's going to be like when you go see her.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part. And the other tough part is leaving. You know, the first time I took her to the facility, she looked at me and she says, I don't want to stay.
That'll rip your heart out.
And I had to turn around and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. But I've shed a lot of tears, and it's very difficult anymore, still, I guess, to talk about a lot of it without the tears starting to flow. But it's, you know, they're kind of right there
I
right
was
now.
going to say that right there. Well, I'm just curious. So I'm going to switch the questions around because
Okay.
you have been in a several years of just sorrow and sadness and loss. I want to ask you here in a minute about how do you encourage people, because I'm sure this whole process has given you the chance to meet or encourage people who experience loss in maybe a way you weren't able to before. But I'm just curious, what brings you joy still? And do you have joy still?
Oh, excuse me. My joy comes from my family. You know, even though it's difficult to have family gatherings and my wife not being there, there is still a lot of satisfaction, a lot of joy in seeing the little ones and seeing my grandkids that are all very successful in their own way. Raising family, you guys know for sure, it's a job that you don't know exactly how good a job you're doing until it's maybe too late.
That's a good way to put it.
And you can't do anything about it, you know. But somehow we've succeeded in raising some really super good people, and just that gives me a lot of joy. You know, that they're happy. You know, our children are in their 30-some year marriages. Might have been a good example to them that it takes some determination, we were told when we were married young, and they said it wouldn't last. Well, it may not. I said after 60 years,
Yeah.
but it gave us a determination to make it last. You talk about relationships and investing in them. You have to invest a lot in yourself into a 60-year marriage, and you have to give up a lot of yourself to make a marriage work.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for
Anything.
anything. Because it's been quite a ride. We've had a lot of really neat experiences. We've had some trials and tribulations, but the trials and tribulations are far outweighed by the joys and the great experiences that we've had. So
Before, what's your wife's name? I can't remember.
Corrine.
Before she really started feeling the effects of dementia, do you have, something that you guys did or an experience that you had together that you hang on to is like, this was a great memory that I go back to?
Oh, wow.
And it's that it's not a very fair question to ask. I want some specifics here, Jerry. I want to know.
I guess, of course, the birth of our kids and seeing our grandkids and that's a difficult question to
I thought
come
you were
up
going to
with an
say
answer.
something like we were surfing in Hawaii together
Oh.
and I did a backflip and landed it or something.
I don't think so. We took a lot of trips and we've been a lot of places. My job as an association director took us a lot of places to a lot of meetings, and
Did you travel a lot together?
we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I guess one of the best trips we've had was went to Cancun, or Cozumel. I'm sorry, went to Cozumel. This is a neat story. Our three oldest grandkids had graduated from high school, and their mothers decided to take them on a cruise. Well, part of the cruise was going to stop in Cozumel. And Corrine and I said, wouldn't it be fun to be there on
getting off the boat.
dock as they getting off the boat and them not knowing we was there? And we did it. We pulled it off.
That's awesome.
We were there, and we saw the ship dock, and
That's so funny.
so we went from where we were staying to there, and little be known to me or to us that the mothers had trouble getting their kids off the boat. Why do we have to get off the boat so early?
Yeah.
Well, they finally did, and there was this pillar. I was standing behind the pillar, and I could see the grandkids coming up the walk. And they got there, and I stepped out, and I said, "Hola, welcome to Cozumel." And they said, "Pop, is that you? What are you doing here?" Yeah. And so we spent the whole day at the resort and snorkeled and swam and ate and all that stuff that you do. And that evening we took them back to the boat and
Say goodbye.
we stayed 3 more days.
Oh, good. Oh, that's awesome.
That was probably one of the most fun things. The other thing that we did, I guess, was with a church group in Arizona, we backpacked down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon to the Havasupai Indian Reservation.
You want to do that, don't you? Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, you walk down through this desert type terrain, and when you finally get down there, you turn the corner and there's a big waterfall, and the blue pools down below, and it's all green, and
Wow.
it's unbelievable. But it's a long walk.
I was going to say, that's a long walk.
It is a long walk. We practiced for several weeks before. Of course, I was in pretty good shape. I've been climbing poles for
Yeah. A long time.
a while, but
All right, I got one more question for you, and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
you've been through a lot. We talked about that. You've learned a lot. How do you encourage people, and what would you say to encourage people who are going through challenges, maybe not with loved ones, but just unique challenges in their life that it feels overwhelming?
Look for an opportunity to make lemonade out of lemons. You've got to see some sort of reason. You got to know that God's in control, and it'll work out. I mean, just have faith in the fact that God is in control, and if you continue to listen to the Holy Spirit or whatever, that you'll get through it. I mean, it's going to be tough, but I think you'll be a better person when you're through it. It's a lot of life-changing things happen that change your life. I mean, that's why you call them life-changing opportunities. But just know that you've got friends, you've got family, that you've got pastors, people to lean on, and you'll get through it. I mean, but just don't despair. Don't give up. Keep on keeping on. And most oftentimes it'll work out.
Well, thank you for being here. I did think of one last thing real quick. You were a lobbyist for a long time. You got any hot political takes for us? This could take the podcast on a whole new trajectory. But how long were you lobbying?
I was 25 years.
Yeah, so a little while. You got any hot takes for us?
Well, one thing that I keep telling people is that, I tell them I was in politics, and they say, "Oh man, I hate politics."
Yeah.
Well, life is political.
Yeah.
But you have to know that the folks that are serving us, whether it's the state legislature or Congress or wherever, it's a tough job. They're not down there partying and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes their days start at 7 in the morning and last till midnight.
Yeah. And you mostly were in Jeff City, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made almost 30 trips to Washington, D.C., which is a whole new world. But, it was an interesting time in my life. I learned a lot. I think that I made some contributions to the betterment of the people of Missouri, and it was fun, really. It was.
Well, if you see Jerry around, shake his hand. He's kind of lived a couple lives, so I feel like if you have questions or want to hear some good stories, he always has them. And thank you for being candid and open with us. And we'll continue to pray for you.
Thank you.
And Corrine as she
we just
deals with it.
Take the next steps of our journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, thank you for being here this week on the Ripple Effect Podcast. We're so glad that you've joined us, and we'll see you right here for our next podcast and conversation together. See you guys.